Hey YouTube, it's Angela. How are we? We're going to talk about heartache this week, how to, overcome it, process it, leave it behind, learn from it, grow from it, all of the above. Um, it's a tender subject, right? We've all experienced the loss of something, right? Whether it be a relationship or um, the passing of someone or the loss of an idea or a goal or an expectation you set for yourself, a project. There's a lot of ways to experience heartbreak, and we're going to work on a little path through that for ourselves. One possible way, right? These readings are all designed as sort of evergreen guidance, but also not, a checklist of things that must occur. This is just one path, one idea, one way. And we start with heartbreak, healing heartbreak. And the back of this card says, "My heart will love again," which is true, right? When we're in the midst of this loss or even just fresh out of it, it feels a little shaky sometimes. Like, how am I going to go on in this new form without this, after this loss? How do I proceed? Right. But we find ways. We find, you know, little signs or people that come through or connecting to spirit, connecting with our inner being, ignoring it and blowing past it and trying to just, create from without acknowledging the loss and stuff. There are different ways to try to address loss in this way. Sometimes, if we are choosing not to address it or kind of slumping and sinking into the sadness and the feeling of lack, we do that sometimes too. That's one way. We don't want to do anything. We just want to feel the loss. We just want to feel sad and sorry that we had to experience it at all. And that is a way, but the trick is to not let yourself sink too far into those feelings, so that you're so disassociated from your center and so removed from it that it's hard to pick yourself up and move forward. And the Zen Oracle cards that I pulled to go along with this healing heartbreak kind of play that out. I pulled isolation. This is that severing, shutting yourself out from the rest of your life or from your other ideas or from people around you because your sadness is too great and heavy. What ends up happening, though, is you end up feeling very alone and very unsupported and in that deep freeze kind of emotionally, right? And like this picture shows, the only way to clear that is to show the emotion, to process it with honesty. Holding that in and holding back from allowing yourself to proceed forward after the heartache, holding it in and keeping yourself in that state of isolation leads to exhaustion, right? We just can't take it anymore. Look how tired that figure is, that man. He's worn out. His cheeks are sunken. There's, his eyes are completely baggy. He's just wiped out. That's from holding in, those feelings that you need in order to process, acknowledge, and move on from. So that's interesting because holding it in leaves you feeling exhausted. But then we come upon our next oracle, which is displacement. This is from the Crow's deck, and it talks about how crows, can't always take its anger or its frustration out on, like say another bird comes and steals its food. Like it has no idea where the food went or where the bird is, but it makes that crow angry, right? Now I'm gonna, seek revenge or whatever, even though they cannot place that anger or that frustration on the source of that anger. Then we're in a displacement mode. So this is when you are in the wake of heartbreak, you're holding it in, you're trying to stay, survive, you're trying to stay whole, and it ends up cutting you off and getting you feeling really detached from yourself and from others. This is possible, that this is another possibility that could happen, is that the anger and the hurt and the wounds that are deep within come out and kind of land on sources or targets that have nothing to do with your experience, right? We can do that a lot. We can like, are we processing our anger by addressing the source of it, or are we just lashing out and expressing the anger and just seeking like the easiest target that we can find, right? That's something to look for, and it's something I would say completely human. If we're not always aligned with all the emotions that we're feeling, we store them and we stuff them, and then they pop out at another time. So it's a pretty common thing, but this is just an energy to look at, to call your attention to if it starts to occur in your life. Like, you're so wounded and hurt and angry, that maybe angry at yourself that you let something get to a point where it was out of your control and you needed to break away from it, which created a heartache or whatever, and you're still hanging on to that anger, and then you drive down the street and someone cuts you off and it's all unloaded on them, right? We see this a lot, especially the more we are dialed into other people's lives, like through social media, and the way we can just get an exposure to other people's experience that way. We see that a lot. People flipping out, on the barista or whatever. And that's a true displacement of unaddressed and unprocessed feelings. So the oracles, the Zen cards that I pulled in relation to this card of displaced emotion are Thunderbolt. Yeah, because it could like suddenly come through, like it could be a sudden burst of these old emotions in a new form, right? And landing on a new subject, on a new target. And so, watch for that. This Thunderbolt kind of comes after all that suppression and isolation, right? At some point, it's got to come out. And sometimes it explodes. And sometimes we end up in more loss, right? Because we're, just standing on too much, standing on too many feelings that have lost track of its original source, and the source of how it happened in the first place. And so we end up piling on and holding it in, and it's going to explode at some point, right? The other card I pulled to go with the displacement of anger is letting go. Learn to, with presence, I feel some anger coming up. I feel this rising up. What's the source of this anger? I wonder what's making me feel this in this moment. And then really sit with it so that you can let it go, right? Sitting with it and feeling it out and exploring it and being curious about what you're going through takes your mind off of the heavier emotions and the woe is me, I'm sinking again, right? It takes your mind off of that by forcing yourself forward and trying to process this, so that you don't end up yelling at the neighbor or screaming at your kids or something for feelings that are there, but maybe not needing to be directed at those subjects. So finding a way to learn to let them rise up and let them fall away together, in the same sort of motion, right? Let them rise up and let them fall away. You could do visual work during your meditation. There's different ways that you can process that and address it. But then we get to so now we've talked about the loss. We've talked about the caution of emotions that get displaced and get put on other subjects or topics because they were sitting unprocessed within you for so long. And now what? Right? So we know we're human. We know we go through this, and we know we sometimes direct our anger at subjects that have nothing to do with it. And what do I do next to, first of all, prevent this disconnect that's going on within me next time? Because it's certain that I will suffer a loss again, right? It's part of the nature of being human. It's certain that I will go through another heartache in my life. But how do I avoid this sort of dramatic, exhaustive energy that's come through? Well, the first thing I got after that set of cards was the card called Security. This is filling out, these are a bunch of deposit slips into your being, self-care. You know, the bank of self-care includes time, space, energy, personal power, and love. And the back of this card says, true security comes from having a reserve of time, space, energy, personal power, and love. Having the reserve. So if you make deposits in all those accounts, then you end up more solid, more secure, more certain, and less affected by things that go on outside of you. Yeah, I can be a person who doesn't feel secure, who doesn't feel like my bank of self-care is filled with all of these elements: time, space, energy, personal power, and love. I can be someone who feels depleted in those areas. Well, then when heartbreak comes along, it's even harder, really, to address it and process it, because there's no reserve, there's no well to draw on, so that you can assure yourself that, oh, I'm aligned. I have a load of love to utilize, and well-being, so that I can move past this easily, because I can trust myself. I have what it takes. I have the tools and the elements within me to process this. So this is kind of an important step. And in what ways can you fill that well for yourself, right? It's different for everyone. Like for me, the time and space became such a clear reality once my kids were grown and sort of on their own. And it really just happened this year when my girls graduated high school. The twins just graduated in 2023. But then I was left in this sort of reality that, oh, I have a lot of time. I have this space the kids are always gone. I have this space to myself more often. I'm not being called on to serve and drive and help and homework and anything anymore. So I have more time to myself. And that was a really valuable reality for me, to learn that, wow, I get to carve the next steps of my life with a full tank. Like I have the time and space now. It creates an abundance of energy for me. My personal power feels shored up because I have the, and of course, the capacity to love is always an important element as well. That part was never really in question for me. The love and the abundance I could always feel, but the real world, sort of the time and the energy and that stuff was like elusive for years for me. But so in different ways, you find and you discover how to sort of make these deposits into your bank of self-care, is what this card is kind of indicating, which is kind of a nice way to see it. And then the oracles I got to go with that are new vision. So this could be, a new realization for you, a new way of seeing it. Wow, if I really want to be able to be there for myself in the future when I suffer a loss, I better make sure that I have, all those elements. I have a plenitude of all those elements within me, so that I can be there for myself, right? So it's a new way of seeing it. It's taking a new angle. It's taking, instead of I'm powerless when heartbreak comes, I'm powerless because maybe it's a relationship heartbreak, and not something you chose to break up, and someone else, you know, their actions sort of directed it so that the split had to happen, and you're left feeling powerless. Well, if you are in this full alignment with that well of all these energies, time, space, energy, personal power, and love. I keep repeating them because they're kind of like the, you know, the 5 gold stars that keep us going. If you have this built up and prepared, you know, you're prepared in that way, the heartbreak becomes less devastating, and you get to see, this was a series of choices that I made to be in this relationship. And when it fell apart, you know, it was kind of inevitable because of the other elements, because this person was not trustworthy, or this person, you know, lost interest, which is a reality that is very different from the way we see it, right? But still, it's the reality, and being able to have enough security within yourself to be able to recognize that, it helps you to transition away from situations that aren't serving you without feeling victim or you know, so devastated by it. So the new vision and the new way of seeing it is key. And then I got breakthrough to go with that too. So this is a big idea, you know, and maybe a lot of us don't see it in that way, or haven't seen it in that way before. But now's the time to sort of test the waters when it comes to filling up your own bank, your own internal bank, with those energies that you need in order to continue on your path. And the least of which is love. The least of which, the most of which, I don't know, I shouldn't have said that. The first energy for me always to tap into is that love, is gratitude, love, appreciation. And this card is called When the Weavers Call Your Heart. This is from the Dream Weavers Oracle. And so these spirit guides of, you know, the dream weavers, spirit guides is how I like to see them, call to you in certain times. It's really being able to turn your attention and your focus on love and the abundance of love that's always there. Love is like that one life energy that heals. It creates unity. It can, you know, build bridges between you and another. And it's sort of an endless reserve, right? That you can always tap into, that a lot of times we cut ourselves off from. And that's when we feel, you know, sort of left in the cold and not in a state of abundance at all. And this is just reminding us to keep your heart open, tap into the love that's already present, that's always there, and go forward without defenses, you know, staying open to absorbing the love that's always present. And the oracles, the Zen cards I pulled with that are slowing down, which is interesting, to tap into that resource of love. There needs to be a sense of presence, of real presence, because that's when you kind of get those little tingles, or those little realizations of how the source of love is always beneath everything we do. And we cover it up, you know, we isolate it out sometimes, you know, love just led to heartbreak. It just hurt me, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to feel it. Well, feeling the love that's always present is different than getting in a love relationship and having the real realities and logistics of life lead it to something that didn't work out. Those are different things. The love is still there, right? It's still within you. And I pulled abundance to go with that too. So it's tapping into an energy of appreciation and gratitude, and that brings the love down, that brings the love through, as long as we're slowing down and you know, staying fully aware in each moment of where these sources are. Most of the time, the greatest source of love is right within your being. And you know, connecting that to your outer world can be a very magical thing. And that leads me to my last card. And this is from Don Miguel Ruiz, The Mastery of Love. This is the author of the Four Agreements. And the card I got is, your heart is like a magical kitchen. Magical kitchen. And it says on the back, your heart can create any amount of love, not just for yourself, but for the whole world. Open your heart, open your magical kitchen, and refuse to walk around the world begging for love. In your heart is all the love you need. Oh, it's beautiful. It's what we've been building up to, right? We started out with heartbreak, and we end up with an abundance of love that's present, that's always within us, right? It says, refuse to walk around the world begging for love. It's already in you. You have it to share with others, right? And then the Zen cards that I pulled with that magical kitchen of love card are we are the world and the lovers. And this is it. This is that ultimate true connection to the collective, to all the energies and those beyond, to the divine, and staying connected in that, bringing about an abundance of love, an abundance of compassion for others, compassion for yourself, which leads to overflowing compassion to others. So this is beautiful. We walked through from heartbreak to displaced emotions, maybe sometimes anger or hurt, to rebuilding it, to shoring up our own well within us to keep us secure and moving at a proper pace, and then starting to really focus on the love energy that's there. I love it so much. This is very, very detailed in how to move past such an energy of heartbreak. I'm going to pull a couple last cards here to sort of cap off the reading. Oops, there it goes. Well, I pulled release. This is for sure letting go of the old ways, letting go of the cling that we have to, what was, or, old wounds, old traumas, right? Finding a way to release them and let them move on their way naturally so that they're not in your space anymore and they're not sort of clogging your path forward. We're all we've all been through a point where we just want to hold on to the way things are or the way things were, even though they're changing right before our eyes, and we just want to cling to, probably mostly out of fear of change. But the beauty of that is, these changes and these losses, it's woven into the whole fabric of our lives. But also, if we're looking and listening and remaining open, we will always, I was going to say usually, but we will always find a way to tap into a lesson or a gift or a message that's coming through for us, so that we can rebuild and not repeat mistakes if possible, and continue to evolve our lives. So love it. Love you guys. And let's get on with our loving. Let's move forward. Okay, I'll talk to you guys soon.